Good afternoon, everyone. This Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of Selwyn for Tuesday, December the 12th, 2023 will come to order. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast or recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any disclosure, pecuniary interest, or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note that in the minutes. I will turn to the planner to give the purpose of this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee of Adjustment is holding a public hearing in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act as of RSO 1990 as amended in order to consider one application today for relief from bylaw 2009-021 being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn. This prescribed notice of the public meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within 60-meter radius of the subject property. Ministry and agencies were circulated via email. Subject property was posted with a sign advertising this public hearing. The notice was also available on the township's website. The notice circulation complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a specified person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn before the variance is granted, person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Committee of the Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township on Selwyn on the proposed minor variances, you must make written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn by fax, email, or Dropbox. So the application before us today is A38-23. This is for 404 Fife Avenue in the Smith Ward. The application seeks relief in order to redevelop the subject property with the approximately 3,000 square foot new dwelling with an attached garage. The release requested are being changed slightly. We had 4 variances originally. We've since verified that this section of Fife Avenue is not a public road, so the relief for setback from a public road will not be required. So the standing release needed are to reduce the minimum high water mark setback from 30 meters to 17.11 meters to a dwelling, to reduce the minimum high water mark setback from 30 meters to 14.56 meters to an open deck, and to increase the maximum lot coverage for all buildings and structures from 20 to 21%. As per my report, I outlined that the application does meet the 4 tests of minor variance, and I do recommend the application for approval. We've received comments from the Conavie Region Conservation Authority in support of the application, but just stating that an ORCA permit will be required in addition to municipal approval. County Engineering and Design has no concern, and Hiawatha First Nation is recommending an archaeological assessment, which the township we're concurring with. And those are my comments on that application.
All right, thank you very much. I understand the agent, Holly Richards Conley, is on the line. Holly, is there anything that you wish to add to the planner's report?
No, nothing at this time. I'm just here to answer any questions that the committee may have.
All right, and is the owner Alcott Kula on the line as well? Mr. Kula, is there anything that you wish to add to this report?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here that is in favor of the application? Is there anyone that is against the application? Seeing none, I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions? There aren't any, and that is the only application before us today. So I look for a mover. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Henry seconding. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. We have no deferred matters or correspondence. The minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting of November the 28th, 2023 are before us. Can I have someone move those? Councillor Koulis, Councillor Boyko, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. And a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is January the 16th. Councillor Henry and Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor? It's carried, thank you very much. It's very expeditious. We have to wait a few minutes now before we begin our regular council meeting. Good afternoon. This Township of Selwyn regular council meeting of Tuesday, December the 12th, 2023 will come to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so that council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and are made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, please put those in the minutes. We have the minutes of November 23rd and November 28th, 2023 in front of us. Would someone like to move them? Moved by Councillor Kuba, second by Councillor Henry. Are there any errors or omissions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Is there any discussion out of the minutes? None? Okay. Now we come to an enjoyable part of our job. We have some long service awards this afternoon that we would like to present. And I would ask council to join me at the front while we invite up different members of the fire. And the first one, Janice, you're going to be speaking about the board.
Well, I've reserved my comment, so I'll be speaking briefly about Gord. Yeah. So yeah, I would just, on behalf of council and staff and the community, like to congratulate Gord on his 25 years of dedicated service to the township and the fire department in particular. Gord still is the first full-time employee, first full-time fire chief that we had serving the community in the fire department. He was appointed in 1998 when we were going through our first amalgamation transition. So I think certainly everybody would recognize that there's been a huge, tremendous amount of change in those years. We know we're going to continue to experience change. That's the everlasting constant. We're constantly evolving in terms of our service in our community. And through all of that, Gord has successfully navigated the opportunities, the challenges, and really has continued to build a fire department that provides service to our community. These guys, other guys in the audience as well, provide service to the community that's second to none. So we really appreciate that. So again, thank you, Gord, for all your hard work and dedication for the last 25 years. And here's to many more to come. Thank you.
So to let you know, Nelson Black, 25 years ago, was on the committee that one of the hired committee that's all about. Come back. Just to make sure.
Just to make sure you're still here. My commit council.
No, it was enjoyable 25 years, and I still love it because of these guys and the girls, the daughters and Tom and officers and everything else. Proud when you get to see guys here today. Thanks, Tim. Always have been good.
We
Don't, but it's better.
Wait, one more.
Perfect. Oh, yeah. Make sure. I'll just stop over here.
Yeah, you're still on. So next, we'd like to invite Paul Fitzgerald up, and he too has 25 years of service. Congratulations. Step into the place of honor.
Been Paul, 25 years. And actually Dan Farrell, 25 years. Paul actually started on the Smith tennis court side of it. There were, Dan Farrell started in Lakefield. Dan couldn't be here tonight. So he's actually went to Halifax to pick up his daughter from back to Christmas. So they'll be at the Christmas, or at the awards night. So, yeah. Paul, thank you. And to let council know, and you'll see that, well, Paul is actually retiring at the end of this month. Thank you. I'll put it in retirement. We'll do that too. Some rewards. Thank you very much.
Just if I can get everyone in the photo, I just didn't get one with everyone. Great, thank you.
Great, no problem. Yeah, we have to work out here, you're all pins ready. I need help getting dressed.
And next, Scott Kavanaugh. He has been with us for 30 years. Congratulations.
Just let you know tonight, so this afternoon, Paul's son, Rob's here. Rob's actually 20 years with us this year too.
And Bill Norby, again, he has been with us for 30 years.
Laugh at the old.
Later call. Later call, yeah, it's hot.
Yes, he done a long years ago.
Yeah. Congrats again.
Go and girls do the final work, we girls do all the bags for next week. And we're actually getting back to April. Yes, they came back last night. Yeah.
And we have Dennis Rue, and he has been with us for 30 years as well. He doesn't want to understand too.
Well, anybody needs to know who Spark is? Right here.
Can we get everyone up for a group shot? Everyone who's recognized?
Breathe everybody in.
Maybe we'll get from there and then choose and then everyone kind of around.
Yeah. Over and Rob. Adam,
Take a deep breath.
Yeah, but why they-
Not the fair side of it.
Wow, guys. Very bright. Switch it a little bit. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, everybody look at me. Big smile. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank
Guys,
you.
Yeah.
All right, and now we have Andy Mitchell, who's the chair of the Selwyn Library Board, who's going to speak to us. Hard act to follow there, Andy.
Certainly is.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And it's nice to be here on this special day, and my congratulations to all of those who service our community as volunteer firefighters. It's very much appreciated. So we're just bringing up the presentation there. And I'm going to run through this, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Sarah is here to answer the difficult ones. I'll try to do the easy ones. So we'll go on from here. So hopefully I can figure this out. There we go. There we go. Okay, so as most of you know me, I'm Andy, and I'm the chair of the library board. And today I'm making a presentation on behalf of the board. So the items that I'm discussing today and the requests that I'm putting forward are those of the board, not just simply myself, and it reflects the unanimous resolution of the board to come forward with this presentation. One of the things that the board wanted me to convey to council is an appreciation of the many pressures that you face as a council. And it's about having to balance one thing against the other. I'm here today to talk about it from the perspective of the library, knowing full well that you have lots of other things that you need to take into account. So today I'm going to try to cover four main things. I want to sort of describe some of the cost pressures that the library is facing, some of the proposed actions that we're proposing as a board. Those actions were developed working with staff at the library as well as with the treasurer. We're fortunate enough that the township and the library share a treasurer. So it certainly helps in that respect. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the financial impacts on those proposals and take a look at some of the alternatives that were considered by the board, and which I'll say up front are not being recommended by the board. So if we go on to cost pressures, I'll just go through these briefly, and these are probably not all that dissimilar that other departments in the township are facing as well. So one of the things, though, that is unique is the advent of the makerspace. This is a very unique creation that the library put together with the help of the provincial government. And one of the challenges that we face is the success of the makerspace itself. Our existing complement, because complement was not changed when the makerspace, it was not increased when the makerspace was introduced. The capacity to service a fourth location is challenging for the existing staff, and particularly with fewer volunteers, the situation that we face today. What's in essence happened is the CEO has been required to backfill in that position, taking away from her ability to act in the role as a CAO. So it's very hard when you're providing frontline counter service to be doing all the management duties that you're required to do as a CEO. So that's one of our pressures, is the opening of the makerspace and its success. The second one is the decline in volunteers. As council is aware, the use of volunteers is significant and, quite frankly, largely a unique component of the Selwyn Library system. It is estimated that they contribute about $250,000 to our operations. It's very significant. Unfortunately, consistent with trends across all sectors, the number of volunteers has declined by 35. Some of these continue to be volunteers, but they limit the amount of time that they work. The numbers, the most recent numbers I have that aren't here is prior to COVID, we had about 14,000 hours of volunteer time. We are now down to about 9,000. So you can see there's a significant decline in the number of volunteers that we have. That 5,000, if you think of it in terms of complement, that's about 2.5 full-time staff equivalents, that 5,000 hours. The accumulated surplus is previously drawn down. So in order to meet that pressure with the opening of the makerspace, a 25-hour part-time staffing position was created. Part of that was funded in the previous year from a grant. The rest of it was funded from accumulated surpluses. So that's their accumulated amount of revenue over expenses from previous years. Well, that's basically been drawn down now. And we're in a position that we need to find a source of funding for that part-time position. There's an employment equity issue that exists at the library that really needs to be dealt with. This is something the township has been aware of. Progress has been made, but it is now time to, I believe, and the board believes, time to regularize the situation. And I'll get into that in a couple of minutes and a little bit more. And the one that I suspect we share with all of the departments in the township, and that's a series of inflationary pressures. The primary drivers for the library are similar to those here in the rest of the township: the cost of living increases for staff, insurance costs, which I'm sure council needs no brief on, and energy costs. And what we also face at the library that's a little different is the cost of replacing our collection, right? The cost of books is significantly increased over the last couple of years. So if we go on to the next slide, and there's some actions that we are suggesting as a board. So first of all, what we'd like to do is bring the temporary part-time position, that's 25 hours per week, into complement, creating a permanent part-time position. Secondly, we'd like to increase the hours of the existing branch librarians from 32.5 hours to 35 hours per week. These individuals are required on a full-time basis, and this change will recognize that need. In the past, their hours have been capped at 32.5, largely to avoid paying benefit costs, which will now have to be funded if we move them to 35 hours. To manage the annual fiscal impact, this change is only being proposed to begin on July 1st, 2023, so half the impact can be felt in the fiscal year 2024, and then the other half of it in fiscal 2025. We're recommending that the staff be provided a COLA increase consistent with the Selwyn policy, and that we fund insurance costs and address the inflationary pressures in book purchases and energy costs. We are also proposing increased fundraising activities. These are ones that are board driven, and they're in line with the plan that was adopted by council in terms of fundraising for the township, but also which will be adopted by the library. We are actively seeking third-party funding. The CEO presently has, and you'll see it's XX because that was a moving target. How many applications do you have out there right now? 6 applications for additional funding, and we have been successful in the past with some and not successful with others. We are recommending a draw on reserves of some 43,000 to help manage the taxation impact in 2024. Of course, that will eventually find its way into the budget of 2025. Use whatever accumulated surpluses that may occur in 2023, and we are tracking for a small surplus in 2023, estimated at about $20,000, and we will use that to help manage the taxation impact in 2024. And one of the things, and I'd like to thank council for a resolution you passed, I think, a couple of weeks ago, to make a presentation to the provincial government to address our core funding, their PLOG grant, which has remained at the same level for a couple of decades now, I understand. So time perhaps for them to take a look at a bit of an increase. So if we move on to the financial impacts of those proposed actions, there's a little chart there. I think this was circulated to council in advance, so you probably had a chance to look at this. So the cost of the COLA and increasing the librarian hours from 32.5 to 35 These are all annualized. It's about 34,000. To bring the new permanent part-time contract into place would be an additional a little over 14,000. The payroll benefits, this is the big cost is, and this is only 6 months, right? It's 71,000 to pick up benefits. Inflationary costs, so the books, the insurance, the building costs, and the energy is about 16,000. We drew down on accumulated surpluses, as I mentioned, in 2023. That's not available for us in 2024, so that's about $46,000. And right now, we built our budget assuming no success on the third-party funding, where hopefully we will get success, but we felt it prudent to build a budget assuming that we didn't get anything, so that would be 31,000. So the total shortfall that we have right now is 183,000, a little over that. And it's recommended that there be two sources of funding. One be the levy, which is there at 140, and reserves at 83,000. So that's what the proposal is, and I believe what the treasurer is incorporating in your budget deliberations when you undertake those later this month. I could go, whoops, there we go. This chart, one of the things that the board did was take a look at other alternatives. We felt that was prudent to do. The challenge with many of them is they don't solve some of the problems that we face. So just that chart on the top is the pressures that we face, which I just went through. Reduced volunteers, insufficient complement, employment equity, rising costs of collection material and other inflationary pressures. And down the left-hand side are the alternatives that we considered. And then the color suggests whether or not we think that action would solve the problem. So at best, it solves part of the problem. At worst, it solves little of the problem. So that's sort of an analysis that the board took on. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I just wanted to mention a couple of other things. So one of the realities is that for many of our residents, the face of our community is a library. There are 11,000 library cards out there. That's more than half the population of the township. For many people, if you think about it, and they look back, they can see their face in the library starting from when they were just a youngster to when they're somebody my age, and all the steps in between. And the library is part of that. Every day, if you want to go in the library, you can see people from all walks, all stages of life, whether it be a young parent in there with an infant, trying to borrow a book, participating in a program, maybe just getting some company. Raising an infant can be a tough task, and it's nice to have the community with you, and the library tends to provide that. You see school kids in there learning in something other than a 15-second social media post, but a robust learning experience for young people. Young adults in there getting information and learning and using some of the equipment that we have there. Or folks like what my mom was. She didn't live in this community. She lived in a different community, but as she grew older, the library was a lifeline to her. She got to relive some of the past history that she lived in and to get a glimpse of the future that she knew she wasn't going to get a chance to see. But the library was special to her, and it's special to a lot of our folks in the community, and it's special. We do something kind of different here. Our library has always been operated by the community and always had the support of the community, and the volunteers have always demonstrated that. It's hard to fight demographics, though. The world is changing in terms of volunteers. It's been a meeting place for everybody. The fact that we've been able to operate in 3 different places, that's not been an easy thing to do, but there's been a commitment on behalf of the township and of the board that we would always do that. And it served our community well. So those were just some personal thoughts I wanted to add on to the presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Before I turn to my colleagues, I just joined the board this term. I've been there for the last year, and my colleagues know that I'm a big cheerleader for Selwyn. I think it's the best place to live in the world. And it also is the envy of so many townships and cities in the province. Firstly, because we have 3 library branches, and it would be 4 if you include the makerspace, which is unusual for a township of our size. For example, the city of Peterborough only has 2. And secondly, because we've been fortunate to have them run by up to 160 volunteers, as Andy has cited. The numbers of volunteers have dwindled and the hours and the days they are available are less. So now we have to pivot. Libraries have become a community hub and have morphed into more than just a place to go and enjoy books. There are a multitude of services to take advantage of as the times change, available to residents, young and old, as Andy has mentioned. The board felt that none of the alternatives that are shown behind me are acceptable at this time, except for the proposed options that our chair has offered. As mentioned, we are going to have a delegation request to lobby the provincial government to increase our core funding at the upcoming Roma conference. There's no guarantee we're going to get it. And if we don't, I guess we'll have to try and lobby in other ways with our MPP. But we're at a crossroads right now with our libraries. So it's going to be a difficult decision for our council. And I'm going to open it to questions now from my colleagues. So Councillor Boyko.
Thank you, Mayor Sennison, through you to Andy. Thank you for that. And thank you for serving as the chair of the board. I was once the chair of the board of the library board, so I understand. And I also understand the challenges, different challenges when I was a chair, but still challenges. And I'm a big supporter of the libraries. Obviously, I wouldn't have served as chair. I use the library at least once a week myself, and proud to bring my granddaughter in, who was very proud of her library card, borrowing the latest Dogman book. And there's a couple of very brief points I want to make, and then a question. First, I think there's a lesson in this. I support the makerspace, but there's a lesson in this, same lesson perhaps in the link and other things, that when we accept a provincial grant or a federal grant to begin a new initiative, but that grant has no long-term funding, we are often put in a difficult decision of offering something to our residents and then deciding whether we have the funding to continue it. And perhaps there is a lesson in that. The second point that I want to make is that we have our goal this year to try to keep our overall tax increase as low as possible, at least low as the rate of inflation, but there's so many things we can't control. The ORCA fund, the police fund, the things that we are just given, inflation for the price of sand and things, the things that are contracted in terms of wages and benefits, things we can't control, which means we really have to make hard decisions on the things that we can control, that discretionary funding. So when I look at the, you're asking for $183,000, the proposal, and I see that 140,000 of it is from taxation. That represents more than a 1.5% increase in the overall tax increase on the residents of Selwyn. I'm wondering about that. When I see that the reserves are 43,000, that's okay. That brings it down to 140,000, but pulling from reserves is as you know too, is unsustainable. So I don't know if that's a long-term solution to a big and complex problem. So all of this brings me to my question for clarification. Could you explain, please, because you were mayor, and so you will get this too, the relationship between the library board and council with respect to council making decisions with respect to the library? Can council make line item decisions or recommendations with respect to, say, for example, the makerspace or the spending of your budget, the setting of your budget, how you allocate your budget in terms of staffing? Could you explain that relationship?
Okay, I'm going to try to do that, but I've got some experts sitting at the table right there who will correct me when I get this wrong. So, council primary responsibility is to provide its contribution to the budget of the library. So in essence, I probably won't use the right word, so help me, staff, if I say it wrong. The library is fully owned by the township, but it is governed by an independent board that is created under legislation. So the amount of money that the township provides to the library is a decision of council. That's your decision. How that money gets allocated and spent is largely the responsibility of the board and then carried out largely by the staff. That in a nutshell is the formal way. But one of the beauties of Selwyn, and I suspect that the community components before amalgamation, has been we've gone beyond just what's legal and what isn't legal. Part of that is the fact that we share a treasure. And so there's a constant flow of information that goes back and forth. Council has always seen itself as a partner with the library, and library has always seen itself as a partner with council. Council in the past have worked hard to help the library out. And I think the library board has always appreciated the support that we get, because the support that council has historically provided the library in Selwyn isn't the case across the province. We've been very fortunate as a library to have a very supportive council. So there's a very formal relationship, but there's also been an informal relationship. And that informal relationship has always been about trying to work together. And so that's what we're trying to do here today. So to your point, John, I think, yeah, the budget part is yours, but the rest of it really belongs to the library board and staff.
Excellent. Thank you.
And
Any other-
did that get it, staff? Yeah, okay.
Deputy Mayor Black.
Yeah, again, thank you, Andy, for the presentation and bringing these challenges to light. Certainly COVID has had a big strain on a lot of organizations with respect to volunteers. The makerspace has helped to reimagine how a community hub library is used, and it's an attraction to new people that want to use those library services. So it would be very challenging to walk that back. Even as Councilor Boyd was talking, with grants and so on, it's great we got it now. What do we do with it down the road, sort of thing? So those are big questions that council have to talk about. From a volunteer perspective, I had the opportunity to talk to Liz Tiffin last week, who's doing a volunteer recruitment program through a grant in City County, and 60 volunteers. She said she's looking for a place to put them. So I maybe asked the library board and staff to talk to Lois. She said that people that want volunteer positions. She's done a great job getting the word out and trying to help a lot of the volunteers that lost post-COVID. So I encourage you to do that. There's a tough decision to be made on the budget. It's Boyd already mentioned. Cost of living has increased for everybody, and we certainly have to take all of that into consideration when we're looking at the total numbers that really haven't seen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Coolis.
Through you. Thank you for the report. I want to clarify what you mean by employment equity, because it could be used different ways.
So we have maintained the number of hours for 5 of our staff, or is it 6? Sorry. 5 of the staff at 32.5 hours. We're told it's just below the threshold to qualify for benefits. Quite frankly, these individuals are needed beyond the 32.5 hours. And that's a big financial chasm to cross, but it's important. There's an equity issue in here. They work as full-time people. They're needed as full-time people. They should be remunerated as full-time people. And that's the point that I'm trying to make.
I'm gonna have a follow-up. Through you. I want to clarify, so if we don't approve this later in the budget, the last slide you had there, it says consolidating 3 to 2. Can you please clarify which branch it's likely that's going to get the chop and why?
Well, we haven't discussed that at length
Okay.
as a board. what will happen is if we don't have sufficient financial resources to maintain the services that we currently have, then the board will have to meet and decide how it wants to proceed.
Okay, do you have any data on what board or which branch it might be?
I don't want to say without having had a discussion with the board.
Thanks.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. And it's very curious to be sitting here today after our long history of knowing each other over the years, going back up to Huntsville. I almost feel awkward sitting here. I thank you for your service to our community and to the library as well. I know a lot of business people in Lakefield that are really enjoying the makerspace because they can get things made for their business and they share it with me. They're like, look, I only paid $5 for this. And that's quote unquote. What if they paid 10 or 15 for it instead? Or there was some sort of a business management fee or something like that that could be paid up as well to help generate some revenues for the makerspace?
Yeah, Brian, it's a good question. And we struggle with that as a board, not just on that, but in all of our fees and services. Because what we try to balance that too is access. So for some people, $5 or $10 is not a significant amount of money. But for others, it's an enormous amount of money. And so whenever you're talking about a public library and fees, you always need to be very cognizant that you don't want to create barriers, unintentional barriers they would be. So from something as simple as, and I wasn't aware of this till I had a talk with the professional staff. When you charge a fine for a late book, most people just give themselves a little knock and say, I should have remembered to bring it back, and they pay the fine. But for a 12 or a 13-year-old who can blow it out of proportion in their mind that they're being fined for bad behavior, they may never come back to the library. So we're always very cognizant in how we do with fees, but is user fees, for lack of a better way of putting it, or increased user fees an option? It's something that always should be considered, but it needs to be weighed against access. You don't want to take a group of our residents and basically make access to what should be available to everybody more difficult for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. So at this point, I think we should receive Andy Mitchell's presentation and send it to budget. Councillor Boyko, you will move that. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Koulis. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Andy. All right, we are now at question period, and this is where a question can be asked one person at a time on a rotating basis. And we set aside 15 minutes, and it is now 23 minutes to 2. I got the time right? So if someone has a question, if they can please go to the microphone at the back and identify yourself and give your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Bill Prentice. I'm with Rhoda Spa. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll say it again. My name is Bill Prentice. I'm with Rhoda Spa. And as you know, I was just going to ask if the council would agree to compose and send a letter to Enbridge in support of that pipeline, and also expand that onto the Ontario Energy Board. We have sent a letter to the Ontario Energy Board, and I don't have all the results with me at this time. However, I believe that there has been a hearing with another group that's put a stop to that pipeline. And I'm just I'll be asking them, I'll be writing them a letter again to find out why we weren't invited as participants to this pipeline. So my question is, would the council consider composing and writing a letter to the Energy Board in support of that, and also to support Enbridge?
So there is a recommendation in our correspondence to do that very thing, and council will be deliberating on whether to send the letter or not.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Mayor, councilors, my name's Guy Hanchett. I'm a resident of Selwyn, Lakefield, proud resident here. I love living here, just like you, Cherry. I think it's the best place in the world we could possibly live. My question is related very closely to the previous question, which is correspondence item 6, which is coming up about the gas methane pipeline along the 8th line. My question in very short form is, why would we even consider sending a letter to the ministry and to the OEB? What's in it for us? When I approached council about a year ago to say that we would like to have a letter sent to the OEB on our behalf saying the new council has changed their mind, they don't think we need a pipeline here, you declined to send such a letter at that time. The proposed letter, as I read it, seems to be for a special interest group, which is businesses who have invested in methane delivery thinking it was a done deal. They're frustrated. I don't blame them. I'd be frustrated too. The proposed letter, as it's described in the motion that backs this up, asks for a speedy resolution, but the language implies that such a resolution will be in favor of continuing the pipeline discussion. I don't think we know that. The appeal made by somebody, I'm not quite sure who, actually I do know who it is Environmental Defence in Ontario group that deals with these things, must have merit or it wouldn't have been accepted for consideration. And I think you'll find that even though there are businesses, including yours along the line there, that would benefit from gas, there are lots of citizens in your community who oppose the pipeline and didn't want it in the first place, and still would be very happy if it didn't get built. So the problem with this pipeline is that it locks us in for another 40 years of new infrastructure, burning fossil fuels, just when the world as a whole is trying to move in the opposite direction. 40 years from now, that will be 2063. We will still be piping methane gas through that pipeline in 2063. And we'll still be burning the stuff. And in 2050 is the deadline that the world has for stopping burning methane.
Mr. Hanchett, so your question, please.
My
This
question
an
is,
opportunity to.
my question is, why even consider sending a letter to the OEB and the ministry?
All right, well, it's further on our agenda and we will be discussing it at that time. And making a decision as to whether we do or whether we don't.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to municipal officers and staff reports and Lane, the budget amendment and PSAB compliance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, council's seen this type of report a few times this year. It's a bit of a housekeeping report. For the most part, the amendments that are outlined have already been before council and approved by council. But we pull one final report together at the very end of the year to ensure that our budget compliance report takes into account all budget amendments throughout the whole year. And we do this so that I can provide it to the audit team. And then the financial statement, which is completed for 2023, it is consistent with council's wishes in a comparison. So it's really a housekeeping report, but a necessary one for council to consider and hopefully approve today.
Right. Are there any questions of Lane? Seeing none, I need someone to move the recommendation before us. Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by Councillor Koulis. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Lord Jopling. Is going to be talking about the fire services communication agreement renewal. Okay, so are there any questions of board? Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sennis, Chief Joplin, thanks for the report. The estimated call, so the price is based on estimated call volume.
Mhm.
I know in your previous presentations and statistics to council, over 70% of the calls are medical calls, and many of them,
Right now.
are, you've got to go and check, but many of them come back and say, really, we didn't need to be there. The ambulance
Exactly.
beat us there, or, whatever. Is there any work done to try and reduce those numbers? Because obviously that's driving costs, and when the majority of your calls are medical and not fire, doesn't make sense to me, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's been frustrating. As you know, we deal with CAC and so actually I've had some good information and a good chat with our med chief this week, and Randy Mello actually sent out a little bit of information that could be coming. So again, through the county chiefs, I think we're going to actually sit down with a tiered agreement and see if that actually needs to be changed from, right now we're at a 10-minute time limit. I think originally we were 15 and 20 for the biggest part of the whole county a number of years ago. So I think we need to go back and look at that for the types of code 4 calls we get. And in the meantime, so through the province right now, there's a program out that's called MPDS, which is Medical Priority Dispatch System. So it is in a number of larger centers right now being tried out. And it's going from CAC to CAC as it's being implemented. So I've heard good things and I haven't heard real great things. And that was at the annual meeting here this last couple of weeks ago. So we probably won't see that in Lindsay CAC for 2 to 3 years now. But Randy's pretty sure that it will help things out a little bit because it puts 5 priorities in instead of 4.
Okay.
So that might help get rid of some of these nuisance calls that we really shouldn't be getting. So I'm hoping it does. And at the same time, hopefully in the next few weeks, 2 or 3, 4 weeks, we'll sit down with the county chiefs and we'll go over this tier response and sit down with Randy Mello and that group too. So, which is our DMS, our part of the tiered response. So, but yeah, I had a good chat with Chief Mello, and yeah, so that, God forbid, we can get something out of this. So, like you say, it's 70% medical calls. That's what's ridiculous.
Yeah, just quick follow up through you, Mayor Sennis again. Yeah, no, I think it's a double hit because we've got dispatch charges for each of those calls. We've got staff going out, volunteers going out, and they get there and there's nothing to do.
Wear and tear, fuel,
all, wear and tear and all that. So it is a big issue, and I get that you're often there first with the ambulance services being busy, but yeah, if we can flush out those unnecessary calls, that certainly could help manage the dollars.
and our people are getting tired. It's a lot of calls.
Yeah, it's impact on the staff that I think is the biggest challenge. Keeping volunteers engaged in what they want to do.
Yeah.
Instead of going out to calls that really
It's
they don't feel necessary.
as Gwen always does, she keeps me updated on calls. So we're at 1,398 calls today.
Yeah.
And we're hitting 14, maybe by the end of the day. Not when we won't, but it's no, it's not right.
Thanks, Chief.
I echo what Deputy Mayor Black says, because this new agreement, we're going to be billed on number of households and calls for service. And if we can cut down those calls for service, we can cut down on the costs as well. So
Yeah.
along with all of the other things that are affected by it. So I look forward to hearing how you make out with this plan.
So it'll be, there are some chiefs that are, yeah, they're kind of on board, and I think we've got to flush something out. So
Okay.
if we can, it'd be nice to bring this down 10-15% call volume. It's huge. Like Ron
Keep us
says, it
posted.
adds up and it hurts the budget.
All right, we have a recommendation before us. I need someone to move that. Councillor Henry and Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor. It's carried. Thank you very much. We are now dealing with the consent application B 56-23. Here.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, this is a consent application with the County of Peterborough, B 56-23. It's for 56 Regent Street in Lakefield. The particular issue here is that the subject property is in a location for floodplain for up-to-date mapping, the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. The process typically is that the township provides comments on consent applications through what's called a municipal appraisal form. Through delegation of authority, when recommending approval, I do that as a staff member. It doesn't get presented to council, but through our delegation of powers policy from 2007, recommendations of denial are presented to council for staff direction. But initially, I supported the application based on current floodplain mapping available on the county GIS, and it still shows that the property, our GIS, that the property is not subject to floodplain, although like I said, this is not reflective of the most up-to-date mapping that the Conservation Authority has. So the original comments went in on June 23rd, and the Conservation Authority supplied comments to the County Land Division on July 10th regarding this up-to-date floodplain mapping, which shows the issue with creating a lot that is primarily subject to a floodplain area. Both through provincial and local policy, planning policy, there's direction that we are not to create lots that don't have a suitable building envelope. And for that reason, the Conservation Authority is not supporting it, and I am also not recommending we support this application any longer based on the most up-to-date floodplain mapping. The applicant has been made aware of this particular issue through emails from County Land Division. Most recently, the county planning staff and County Land Division staff have tried to reach out to the applicant with no response. And the county has now reached the point where they're ready to forward this to County Land Division committee for a decision to complete the process. And so they're asking us to update township comments to be reflective of the Conservation Authority's comments. To be submitted to County Land Division for determination on this application. So those are my comments on that application. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Senes. Thanks for the report on this particular property. Councillor Boyko and I went and actually looked at the property yesterday after hockey. And surprising how small the Severn parcel would be. And standing at the sidewalk, it's literally 6 feet below us on the sidewalk, and with a couple of very large culverts draining the property. So it's pretty evident that it's a low property. It is challenging for applicants, and I've been there, when you look at a map and it's not mapped as floodplain. When you put these things together and make these requests or purchase a piece of property and it's not properly mapped, it's challenging for sure. But I've spoken to Orca on this one as well to get their feedback on it. And it's pretty evident that this is a flood plain that would rise to almost a meter in water in one of our major floods that we'll surely see moving forward. So I think the recommendation is appropriate from the township as well.
Any other questions? Right, are you willing to move that recommendation? Moved by Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by Councillor Koulos. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We'll move on now to consent items. Is there anything that anyone wants pulled? Okay. Yes, you do. All right, so moved by Councillor Koulis to pull number 1 on the correspondence. And I need a motion to move all of the other items in the consent. Moved by Councillor Boyko, seconded by Councillor Henry, all in favor. That's carried. We will pull item 1 on the correspondence, which is to do with Enbridge. Yeah, let's see here. So before I pass it on to the rest of council, did you want to speak to it, Councillor Boyko? All right. I wanted to mention that I feel that the system's flawed. I feel when a project that has received approval and is 95% complete can be stopped in its tracks by any group after businesses and residents have expended money to receive the service. I don't understand how that kind of thing can happen. It isn't. Businesses in our township, I don't remember, Prentice, yeah. I believe he mentioned that they've expended $30,000 to $40,000 already in order to receive the gas. And now it's stopped, and he's probably going to have to spend the same amount of money if it doesn't proceed. I don't, again, think there's fairness with that. And I feel that we should urge the Ministry of Energy and the Ontario Energy Board to recommence as soon as possible the work necessary to provide for the service. I also want to mention to you that this recommendation has gone to County Council. It's on their agenda for tomorrow's meeting, and I would expect it will be supported at that table. So I'm looking for someone to speak to this, or Councillor Koulis.
Thank you. Through you. I just have a question which staff might be able to answer. Can you clarify what they mean by regulatory uncertainty?
I think what they're meaning is they're just not sure whether the decision will remain as it was originally issued.
Okay. I just want to point out a couple things too, that I went on to Enbridge's website to look at what exactly they say for Selwyn, and they do miss a few lines that they don't include in the letter. On November 28th, 2023, Enbridge Gas has made the difficult decision to halt construction on the Selwyn Community Expansion Project as a result of the ongoing regulatory challenges. With the leave to construct approval now at risk, Enbridge Gas has an obligation to protect our stakeholders and existing customers, and we will cease construction until the OEB's process concludes and all appeal periods have expired. So my understanding is that they're just stopping until the process continues. Okay, so I'm very cautious on their wording. I'm just clarifying that. So I'm just going to be very to the fore. My name will not be on this letter because I actually believe that the processes here are democratic and they are fair. And they are asking Selwyn to put their reputation on the line to go against democracy on this point. So even if y'all sign it and support it, I just won't be on it, and from my own perspective, because I don't think Selwyn should put their name forward to have our reputation at risk.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Senes. The 8th line of Smith is in my ward. There's a variety of businesses that are primarily in the manufacturing sector. These businesses have spent thousands of dollars preparing for Enbridge project to be completed so that they can have a smooth transition into natural gas through a process that was already proved and noted, extremely democratic. The stopping of it, I would say, would be almost undemocratic. As well, we have private residents and farms that have also made investments into this. The 8th line is also home to gravel pits and our landfill site. This is not prime residential real estate. The 8th line is in the heart of Selwyn. Its accessibility to transportation support what I see as our area's prime area for development, supporting manufacturing, which it already has established itself as. There's much discussion on building homes faster throughout the province, but there will not be enough jobs to support those who choose to live here. With regulatory uncertainty, how are we to attract businesses to our area with such actions being taken by organizations after a project was already approved? This matter goes well beyond getting everyone's residents equipped with heat pumps. Kayaks, hot tubs, marine docking systems, CNC machines are not made or run on heat pumps. Quite frankly, those who have natural gas, telling those without natural gas that they can't have it is nothing short of hypocrisy. I would fully support writing a letter.
Thank you. Councillor Boyka.
Thank you. I will raise not a motion, but just a question. And I am one of those hypocrites. I am one of those who danced when Enbridge Gas came down William Street in Lakefield and I could get rid of my baseboard heaters. And I watched my house be heated properly and my heating costs plummet. So I'm one of those hypocrites, but I'm also one who supports the notion that we should be doing all that we can in Selwyn to reduce our carbon footprint. And I know that putting natural gas through this pipeline and others that may come in the future basically goes against our notion of reducing our carbon footprint, because we are saying that we are supporting the use of methane gas for the next number of decades. I'm wondering, and I'm not putting in a motion, I'm just asking council's thoughts on adding a sentence to the letter. I won't tell you the wording, but just to say that there are residents in Selwyn who believe that natural gas should not be extended through any more areas of Selwyn, so that we might meet our climate pledge that we have made, and so that we might contribute to Canada meeting its 2050 net zero carbon pledge. Would council be willing to add a sentence that we could talk about the wording to acknowledge those who are opposed to this extension?
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Senes. Any voting that's happening today, I want all recorded.
Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. I don't think there's anybody on this council that disagrees that we have to make strides to climate change. As most people know, I was a very early adopter with ground source heating more than 30 years ago. Put 2 systems in for a number of different reasons. But my concern with this work stoppage on this particular project, it does undermine democracy. This idea of putting this line in, I guess, started about 6 years ago. From what I understand, I wasn't on council, obviously, back then. Went through a public process, review, comments, and eventually got to an approval place 6 years later. So, you know, to me, this undermines the democratic process, that at the 11th hour, anybody can come forward and ask for another review after it's been reviewed in depth. I mean, the process of getting any kind of planning and building permit these days, it's expensive. It's very detailed. And for me, it's really about undermining the process. I'm very much in favor, obviously, of moving towards heat pumps and those sorts of things. The manufacturing side of the world is different. We have a number of businesses along the 7th line that require some form of, sorry, 8th line. Sorry, I lived on the 7th line. I backed onto that. My property backed onto those businesses. Sorry, the 8 County Road 18 8th line. Rely on some form of higher level of heating in their manufacturing processes. So certainly they are mostly using oil and propane these days. And for me at this point, natural gas, as much as many of us dislike it growing, it's actually an improvement over what they're currently using and at a lower cost from what I understand. So again, my main concern is undermining the process. I think it would undermine businesses' willingness to invest in our community. The gas on that line will bring more businesses and jobs for our kids. And it's a cleaner alternative to what's there now. So I will support the letter. Again, even though I certainly understand the need to move forward with other actions on climate change, I think this is better than what's there now. So I will support it.
Thank you. All right, so Councillor Henry.
If we're done discussion, I'd put forward the motion to have the letter done.
I just want to clarify that, again, coming back to the process, that Enbridge has decided itself to stop construction.
No, there was a
No?
court injunction to stop them.
Okay, it's just really interesting the way that they're depicting themselves online versus the letter that we received. So I
No.
still stand by my stance on, because there is a specific process put in place with regulation. I work with it every day. And to me, it doesn't make sense that we're saying it's unfair when this has been the process for many, many years, not just this case. And again, I'm on this about the democratic process. I'm not on it about not getting the gas to customers. I think it's going to happen anyway. I think it's needed.
Necessarily.
But can I finish, please?
Yep.
Thank you. But I do want to point out that I think it's really just untasteful the way the letter came to us, worded that way. It's very strategic. And I think we do need to take a stance, especially as we're, like, if we are in support of our own residents and how we want them to achieve what they want to achieve. I don't think that this is the most crystal clear and transparent way forward.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that has been moved. Deputy Mayor Black will second it. And Councillor Henry has asked for a recorded vote.
May I ask one more question before we go to the vote?
Yes.
Through you, my question is, I raised the point that should we add a sentence that says something along the lines that Lakeville Council always also wishes to acknowledge that many of our residents oppose the extension of the Enbridge gas lines in the township in light of the township's pledge to reduce its carbon footprint and Canada's pledge to attain net zero by 2050. I heard no discussion as to whether that's a good idea or not.
Well, there was no one that was seconding.
It wasn't a motion. It was as I was asking for a discussion. Do we believe that that is a good idea
Councillor
or not?
Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanis. The sentiment of what you're proposing, Councillor Boyko, I think is notable. However, it looks very contradictory, I think, and confusing if we're putting through a letter of support because at the same time we're retracting it, in my opinion.
The way I worded it is wishes to acknowledge that many of our residents oppose. Doesn't say Solomon Council opposes. It says we are acknowledging that many of our residents oppose.
And what purpose would that serve for us then?
Well, we go back to that and say, what purpose does this letter at all oppose, when I don't think what we say is going to matter one whit once it goes back to the court and the injunction is
Okay,
lifted
so
or stayed. So
I'm-
I asked, do we want to put this in or not?
There is a motion on the floor. And your debate isn't, I don't believe your debate is appropriate, John. So we are now ready to vote, and I would ask the clerk to, do you have a? Yeah.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanis. Just for you, John, Councillor Boyko. So is putting through a motion in support of writing the letter, obviously, is one issue. Are you putting forth a friendly amendment or?
Push the button so people on YouTube can hear me. What I was proposing is rather than bringing it as a formal amendment, so that we would get into the rules of having an amendment and bringing it and voting back and forth. I just don't want to make that complicated. I just wanted a discussion, and that's why I raised it before. Do we believe it is a good idea that it comes forward as a friendly motion? And then it fell flat and nobody responded to it. So that's why I asked, is there any discussion whatsoever about this? If you'd like me to bring forward as a friendly motion, I will, and we can friend me amendment and we can vote that up or down before we go to the full letter. So however we want to play it. It's up to council.
I would decline a friendly amendment as worded.
Okay.
All right, so there is a motion on the floor and we have requested a recorded vote.
Mayor Senes?
Could we hear the motion again?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The motion would be that the correspondence from Donna Popovic of Enbridge Gas related to the natural gas expansion project in Selwyn be received, and that the Township of Selwyn send correspondence to the Ministry of Energy and the Ontario Energy Board urging a timely resolution and recommencement with respect to the County Road 18 project in support of the many local residents and businesses who have been financially impacted by this project and are relying on the provision of services. Mayor Senes,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Black.
Yes.
Councillor Boyko,
Yes.
Councillor Kulis,
No.
Councillor Henry.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
All right, so we will now move on to other new and unfinished business. Is there any other new and unfinished business? Let's pass the authorizing bylaw 2023-086 for the fire services communication. And then we'll go into closed. Councillor Henry, Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Move to go into closed. Deputy Mayor Black, Councillor Kulis, all in favor? That's carried. We'll meet in the other room.